Oh, what's up?
Oh, hey.
How you doing?
Just doing my thing. Your arm looks good. Still there.
Yeah, so it's this scar right here. That's the surgery area where they so what happened is when I ruptured it, this tendon popped off here and my bicep went up into here. And so they had to grab that tendon and pull it back down, put a screw in my arm right here and reattach it. So I've been not wearing the sling at all. Like um I think the day that we filmed last week was the last day I wore the sling, and then I was just like, you know what, because the whole idea is to get it to straighten back out, and I can't really do it all the way yet, but like I can let gravity kind of take over and
Right.
hold it, and it's been doing okay. And so it's gotten a lot straighter, and I mean this motion actually like turning my hand over this way are the two things that hurt the worst. So I tried to play guitar a couple days ago and I tried to get my hand in that motion and it just in that position and it's not happening right now. So it's a little disconcerting, but I'm uh I'm hoping that all will go well and that you know that I will be back to normal before we play in Alabama in about like 5 weeks or something. You won't be there because you've divorced us, but it's fine.
Yeah, just living my best life.
I,
Yeah,
I
so
love I love the fact that on your bio you list Motley Crue before Shinedown. I love that. That makes me like really happy. Like every time I read that, I'm like, oh, I got it. Motley Crue, then Shinedown.
well,
Got it.
normally I do
No, no,
stuff
no. It's
I do
it's
stuff
okay. It's okay.
alphabetically.
I understand the requirements of the job that are put down by the you know
Overlords.
the overlords of the crew. There will be no other bands before the Motley Crue. We get it.
Yeah,
We
it's a tough.
understand, man. It's fine. Look, Justin does a great fucking job, and you know, and a stupendous job in your absence. So, um, you know, I'm just gonna start listing Justin's name on my on my bio.
You
I'm
should.
just, I'm just gonna put Eric Bass, bass player for Shinedown, Justin Press. That's all it's gonna.
What what else is new today? Oh, so my comic book, issue number 2 is up for pre-order today,
Yeah, man. Dude,
which is
I'm so
awesome.
proud of you for that, man. Look, I know I know. I'll let you get back to the to slinging the comic book. But I've said this before on here, man. It's insanely difficult, at least for me. I'm not saying it is for you, but for a lot of people, it's insanely difficult to write something, conceptualize something, write it, bring it into reality, birth it, and then to actually release it to the world. It's not an easy thing to do. It seems like it is sometimes because people do it all the time, but people are on a daily basis doing these things. That doesn't make it easy. So I'm super proud of you for doing that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, and I have a bunch of people, like the people I text with a comic book, or like people that help me with like ideas, not necessarily for merch, but for like I had this idea where I got to package this thing once it's all done, and like this cool like World War II replica
Mm.
ammo tin with like all this
Oh
cool
yeah.
stuff. So it's like that's the packaging I have once this whole thing's out, and some of my friends in there, like Nando and Ashley and stuff like that, where I'm just like, I'll send these ideas at all times of day, where it's just like 3 in the morning, 4 p.m. And the ego, selfish part of me, when I do that, is just like, why you can't be? I have an idea help here. What do you think here? It's like I don't. It's tough for me once I'm in the creative headspace to realize that other people's lives don't circle around how I create or how I manifest what I want to do. And it's
Right.
been so humbling to try and like you have an idea in the studio. It's like, well, all the guys are on vacation away. Like, how do you put this on paper? Like that rush to get this out, waiting for someone else. Where it's like it's kind of taught me how to
Well,
respect people's like opinions, but like also to it's okay for you just to get it out, but just don't anticipate an answer at 3:30 in the morning because I'm the only one fucking up.
yeah, but it's important to do what you're doing because like if you stifle that thing in that moment or you put a cap
Correct.
on it because it might not appear the same way ever again and that stream of consciousness that you're having about an idea might not show back up it might show back up but it might not show back up with the same vigor with which it appeared the first time
Correct.
so you look man as ADD kid like for me it's It's if I don't write down a lyric idea, if I don't write down a story idea, if I don't write down or I don't sing a melody into my phone in the moment, like if it's 4 a.m., if it's 4 p.m., if it's wherever dude, I've been getting ready to go into meet and greets before and grab my phone and start singing something that's in my brain so I don't forget it. And having to like, especially with melody and chord progression, having to put it into a form that I'll be able to remember what I was thinking about prior to. Uh, if I don't do that stuff instantaneously, man, it's gone. It will not come back. And if it does, it won't be the same that it was. So that stuff is like, it's wildly important for you to text whoever you're going to text and put the idea out there or like you sent me an audio message, and I haven't hit you back yet about it. I got it though, and about something. But the fact that you start that ball rolling, it's important to do it in that moment, you know?
Well, it's super because sometimes they'll wake up and be like, "Hey, sorry, I was busy to take care of my kids or at work or other stuff." I'm like, "No, I get it." It's like it's just they're starting to realize now. It's like that's how I need to operate to be successful. What I'm trying to do, and for the longest time though, like you said, it just took me a hard time. I always felt guilty of like, well, fuck, I don't know if they have alerts on their phone or I don't know
Yeah,
this because these are also the same people would be like, "Dude, that idea is fucking batshit crazy. Let's do it," or "It's batshit crazy. Let's figure out how we can try and do it."
there is a price on working with anybody, whatever that price is. And that price is either worth it or it's not. And the people that are working with you wouldn't be working with you if the price wasn't worth it. And so, but I guess my point is that like the price for working with you is, hey, at 3 a.m. I'm going to get these things that come through, and that's an easy price. The price for working with me is that I'm moody as fuck, and you got to put up with that if you want to work with
Right.
me. And it's not like you're not daring somebody with that. You're not extorting them with that, but it's just like there's going to be a price no matter what it is. If you're going to work with Brent, there's going to be some uh single-mindedness that you have to deal with, and we're going in this direction, and this is how fast we're going and how far we're going, and everyone's got a price like that. So the fact that no one has jumped ship on you means that the price is worth it.
Yeah, I mean they're all suicidal. Just kidding. No,
Sure, yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like it's weird too when it comes to like what I do for work. There's no there's no urgency what I do with that because it's what I'm really good at and what I do, what I love, my passion, security, whatever. There's never any like, how about this idea? Like it's just a weird thought process. I don't know if it's the same with you when it comes to like the idea of whether maybe say writing with Shinedown, performing on stage with Shinedown versus something outside your comfort box, which could be what you're doing your solo project or something like that, where it's just like there's more urgency or like a weird mental thing that happens for me where I'm just like if I'm in my comfort zone, I bomb threats, active shoot, like who cares? Like we're gonna get through this, we're gonna do the show, no problem. But when it comes to like stuff where I'm not used to doing creatively, I kind of stress myself out where I'm kind of like, well, fuck, I gotta think of this. It's like, well, I'm in my head right now. I've got envisioned with my comic book stuff and the poetry stuff and this thriller thing I'm working on. For the next 3 years, I already have tentative ideas in my head for release dates. It's like I don't know if that is. I know you and I have talked about being goal orientated with stuff. Like how far out? Like, do you ever find yourself just kind of like stuff like shit compiling, stacking on top of each other, where it's just like all these ideas, yet I don't have an idea where I'm gonna put this first thing out. Yet I'm already working on something that's number two or three or
Well,
four.
that's a hazard of the that's a workplace hazard for sure. Uh, I mean, I've got the same problem. My problem is we talked about this, man. My courage to put something out is not what yours is, and that's why I'm applauding you for doing what you're doing because, in my brain, it's like everything has to be perfect before it gets put out, rather than just putting it out. And I'm trying to. It's actually physically. I don't know how else to describe it. There's a physical, not pain, but like a revulsion. I can say pain because it's not like painful, but there's a revulsion or a pain to thinking about going, no, you know what? It's not perfect. Just put it out anyway. Or, it's good enough. Just put it out anyway. Like I'm having to it's almost like being a hoarder. I'm not saying like you're not hoarding ideas. I'm saying that like how it's painful for someone who's hoarding something to get rid of something, even though they've never looked at it, but they've
Right.
kept it and hung on to it just in case they might need it. Like I can kind of put myself in that headspace and go, okay, I can see how that's painful. Um, and I'm like that with releasing something into the world that might not be ready. It'll never be ready. And that's what you think I would know that by now. It's easier with Shinedown because I've got three other people with me who are telling me this is great, this is done, this is perfect, it's good, let's go, we got to get it done. You know, when it's just me by myself, man, I stymie myself, you know, and with that though comes this thing of like, dude, I've already got, like, to your point, I've got 8 stories that I've started on. I've got I already know what I want my next Eric Bass record to be, even though I haven't put this one out yet. I already know people. I've been talking to people. The universe is real, by the way. I was thinking about this one individual, this one drummer, and I was thinking about doing a project where it's like, man, it'd be great just to be 3 people in a room, just live recording, like Ross Robinson style, recording the next record that I do, for whatever that is. Like no beat detective, no anything, just raw, like old school, like an old school Glassjaw record, or the first Korn record, or those Ross Robinson things that I love, the first Slipknot record. Um, and funny enough, man, one of those drummer people that I was thinking about, like, just hit me up on Instagram randomly about, hey, we should do something sometime.
Damn.
Very interesting. Uh, of course, I'm not in the place right now where I can do any of it, but
Yeah, of course you
yeah,
deleted
I
the
get,
message and blocked him. Yeah.
yeah. But but anyway, man, it's a very real thing to like. Uh, the great thing about that is that you know what your potential is. You have a bead on your potential. You know that you have the potential for these things to actually happen. Um, and if you can organize your brain enough to circle dates and just go, you know what? As long as it's readable or it's viewable or it can't be a rough lump of shit, but like as long as it's in some great finished form, I'm going to put this out by this point. If you can do that you can be unstoppable, man, because it's not about perfection. It's about existence of the thing. And as I'm saying this, the word hypocrite is just
Yeah,
looping through my
dogpiling it.
brain
Yeah.
because this is where I'm at, man. Like I've got friends that two of the people when I finished my record that's fucking done, should be out already. I've had it remastered since then and kind of done some things to it, but when it was first finished, I sent it to 2 people. I sent it to Phil Demmel and I sent it to or Clint Lowry, both. And because Clint is great at putting out his own records, man, he's got great records. Whether it's Clint Lowry or it's uh uh what's Hello Demons Meet
Yes.
Skeletons, I think is the acoustic stuff he does. And the same thing with Phil is great at making projects happen. Right now he's out with Category 7, which is the new project
Yeah.
he's working on, and he's got 1,000 things in
Slayer
the works
stuff.
all
Yeah.
all the time. So yeah, the stuff with Kerry King and he's always moving and shaking. So I appreciate those people, but I think about the fact that Clint has, like, one of the things that inspired me to finish my record in the first place was Clint's last solo record he did, uh, which is a great piece of work and uh, really inspiring to me. And so I thanked him for that. I was like, hey, will you listen to this thing? I really appreciate you inspiring me. And now I think about the fact that he's getting ready to release another thing before I've even released this one thing, And so it's also difficult too, man. Like I think you're finding this out. It's difficult when you don't have a team of people to help you with it. It's like
Well,
I'm
it's a
sitting here,
full-time job.
yeah, I'm having to process right now. It's like, okay, well, the whole intention was to do vinyl and CDs all along because I like physical things, right? But if I do vinyls and CD, it has a lot of artwork involved with it, and it's very artwork centric. So it kind of needs to be laid out in that sort of a way. If I'm going to do that and I'm doing it and I don't have a record label, that means that I'm responsible for mailing every single thing that people order and making sure that it gets done. Uh, I don't have the infrastructure for that necessarily. I mean, I don't know how many thousands we're talking about. Hopefully, it will be in the thousands, maybe only be in the hundreds of people that want it, but uh, worldwide. Like I want it to go out worldwide to people, and I want to make it affordable to go out worldwide to people. I'm actually in the position, which is very nice and a great place to be, that I don't have to charge
Correct.
if I break even, I'm happy because it got out there. I'm not looking to make money on it, right? So hopefully I'll be able to cut down on some of the charges for overseas shipping and all of this stuff, right? I'm not saying that I haven't things are really expensive right now, but I'm hoping that's what happens, right? But the infrastructure side of it is stuff that I never thought about. It's just like, oh, just do it and make the thing and put it out. And it's like, yeah, you can put it up on digital streaming services, but do you want people to know it's there? Do you want people to be aware of it? When now I have to have a publicist. Now I've got to have, uh, try to have some sort of, if I want to do a single, which is kind of a weird thing with this record because there aren't really any singles on it, but people keep asking me about a radio single. And it's like, okay, well, do I want to take this to radio? I've got this whole infrastructure thing, not that I'm completely on my own with that side of it, but it's a lot. And I think you know it's a lot. So when you're looking at these things like, hey, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to put it out, well, good luck because it's a lot of infrastructure that has to be put in place and a lot of man hours, woman hours, a lot of person hours
Yeah, human
to
hours. Yeah.
human hours to make that happen. After the music is made, and for me, I'm good at one thing. I'm good at making the music. And when that's finished, uh, you know, it's a real gut check for me. And so again, man, I I know I went off on a tangent, but we were talking about uh, you know, having all those other ideas before you even have the first thing
Yeah.
finished. But that's healthy, man. I think that's really healthy because the more if you can start on seeing the other thing that's maybe 2 years down the road now, even if it's just sketches or, you know, not even first drafts,
Just
just drafts of
ideas.
first
Yeah.
drafts. Yeah. Then I think that'll allow you to get to that point. Um, but you seem to have a pretty good infrastructure of people built up that are helping you too, though. That's really good, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you start something in the throngs of the pandemic, and you kind of circle yourself up. I remember during the pandemic, when we first like held six goalposts, 6 months, a year, every day. Kent Sinkler, the merch director
Yep.
for Shinedown, Warner, does Green Day, all that shit.
Yep.
Him and I would talk every day about ideas how to like make the podcast successful as it pertained to like merch and like different stuff. As I learned so much from him that year, where him and I would talk every day. And of course, we were doing some of the Smith and Meyer stuff, laughing at this drive-in
Who's
shit.
that? I don't know who that is.
Yeah, they're a local band from Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah. Okay.
Acoustic rock. Yeah, it's like yacht rock, but not as good as could come across.
Sounds very hippie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very protest songs, really.
Right.
So I was just kind of like, so you learn if you're willing to put in the time to talk with people, again, like we said before, like surrounding yourself with people that might not know what you're doing or understand what you're doing, but they support you and they get what you're doing, they're there to help. That I think that goes a long way, and I've been fortunate enough to have those type of people just to kind of like shoot the shit with, or just kind of like figure out. And then in turn, which is odd. The last couple of weeks, a couple of people hit me up about starting their own podcast and about like what goes into it and all the stuff. And like before, I'd be like, oh yeah, do it. And now I'm so protective of like how much hard work, and we talked about this last week or whatever, goes into what even you and I do trying to make this
Yeah.
work. It's like I'm so protective of the idea that this isn't for everyone, and I don't like the fact that. Let me take that back. I love the fact you want to do this, but you have to understand that there is so much that goes into this to be success isn't number of views or downloads or who likes your page. The success comes from if you're happy what you're doing and you keep doing it. Some of these people that do this stuff out of boredom or fear, or they just think they can just jump in here and do it. It takes a lot of fucking work. And I'm
Yep.
super protective of that. And I had to bite my tongue a couple of times talking to these people because they are friends. And I realized that just hearing them, even the fact they asked that question to me, shows me they care. And
Yeah.
so I don't know it's just such a fascinating time, that weird spot of like I'm curious how like after mid October I'm done based technically for the year security work wise, and it'll be the first time in God since the pandemic where I've able to been home for at least 2 months in a row. I'm curious how like creatively as I sit around, like how much that's gonna differ like or change like my mindset towards a lot of the stuff.
Yeah. The one thing that you have to watch out for with that, and I've hit this trap before, is like when I'm touring, man, and I'm busy, 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 I'm like scheming about when I get home. Okay, when I get home,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
able to accomplish this. And then I get home and I collapse, and
Oh,
like it becomes very difficult to do the thing. I don't realize how tired I am, I guess. And I'm older, man. I'm going through this weird dip in my. I can't even do that motion. This weird dip, this weird dip in my development as a person and as a man where I'm tired for the first time in my life. And so I'm having to battle that. But that aside, like I will even if I wasn't tired, I'll get home and I will go, okay, man, let's hit the ground. And if I don't hit the ground immediately when I get home and just start working on the thing and just keep rolling, if I take a couple of days, 2, 3 days,
oh.
I realize how exhausted I am from all the travel and all the moving, and then I sink, and it's very difficult to get that momentum back. So I'm curious, man. But again, you're what, 10 years younger than me or so. Well, you're more than 10 years, 12, 13 years younger than
Well,
me.
I'll be 40
Uh,
this coming April.
okay, so we're 10 years apart ish. 10 and a half years apart. Uh, so so yeah, I mean, I think you'll be fine with that. I don't think it's hit you yet. For me, dude, it's this weird thing that's happened, over the past few years, couple of years, where I'm I
Well,
I'm
physically,
sort
you've put your body through a lot more shit than I have injury wise in terms of like wear and tear in your body, right?
yeah.
So
I
it's,
think it's the mental thing. I think it's the family stuff, and the
oh
death
yeah.
and we've talked about that, right? I think that's what it is more than anything. Is just, you know, uh everything being out of sorts and out of balance for me for a while. I'm hoping that's all it is. I'm hoping that I get everything back and that I, come back bigger, better, stronger, because it's not my normal MO to like to uh to be in the place that I'm in right now, mentally and physically too. Um so I think I'll be all right. But I guess sorry, I guess what I'm trying to get around, as as tangents go. I was trying to get back around to going, man, when you get home, you got to hit the ground running with that stuff. And if you can do that, and I mean, you'll need to take some time for yourself and your family as well. But uh, I think that, the look, I had this idea about doing this rock opera thing for a while, right? I'd had the idea since before we started Attention. And when I got home from Attention, and granted, a pandemic was happening, but that was just kind of it didn't really affect me and what I was doing out here. And man, I got home and it was just like, I'm doing this thing. I want to know if I can do it. And, once you commit to something like that and sink your whole self into it, you'll get the stuff done. Um, the problem is picking what the next thing is. Like if you've got all of these ideas, what's the next one that is the most logical in the steps? Which story is it? Which song is it? You know, which business idea is it? Because um, at least I think, and what I've learned is that if you want something to be truly great, you got to put everything you have into that one thing one at a time. At least that's me.
Yeah.
And so it's like you going like, okay, I've got X, Y, and Z story. You and I have a thing, right? That we should probably do
Yes, which we probably actually do in October, November, December.
sooner rather than later.
Yes.
And uh so that's one of those things, right? Or maybe it's something else. Maybe you've got this other, like, well, hang on a second, rather than this thing that I have, this idea that Eric and I have, maybe it's that it's this novella that I want to write or something. And uh but it's picking that next fork in the road is to where to go. And it's interesting, man. It's like, it's sort of like a choose your own adventure novel. Well, if I choose this before this, then all the events are different after that. It's
Correct.
like who knows where this one thing will lead me, where this other thing wouldn't lead me at all. Uh yeah, it's
I now when it comes back to your solo thing, are you doing this through yourself or like a record label? Because I'm going through like the other day I put on Facebook like, hey, should I do self-publishing or look for an agent publisher for my book of poems? And varying views, but everyone the basically the gist I got out of it was I know I'm always going to bet on myself.
Yeah,
And I like the idea of the self-publishing in terms of I control everything,
that's correct.
not only the finances, but like I'm the one voice outside of the people in my circle that can dictate how this is going to go. And I understand that a lot of the marketing and a lot of the extra work that a lot of people don't do, they just throw it on Amazon or whatever, just whatever. That's part of the work. The work is actually selling your idea, and
Yep.
I like the control of that. I love the idea that I'm in charge of that. But I guess the ego part of me has always been enamored with the fact of, well, if you have an agent and publisher, then it's legit. But then you look at our friends like Eric and other authors and these other people that do everything on their own. It's like, dude, hold on a second. I grew up so used to, if you're not a major publisher like Penguin House or Random House, like no one gives a shit about your work. And it's like we couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
And I just need to hear those people say that where it's like, just bet on your fucking self. So
Yeah.
when it
So,
comes to you, what are you doing with that?
well, it comes down to what is a company going to bring to the table to help you, and what are you willing to give up for that help?
Correct.
That's it. That's the question. With a record label, and I don't know much about the book publishing world, but with a record label, what are they bringing to the table? Well, they'll have a promotion department. Uh, they'll give you an advance of money to hire them. they'll, they'll, they'll give you an advance of money to hire them to promote things that you're just going to have to pay them back. So you're spending money already, right? If you're not spending it up front, you're spending it off of whatever your book makes or your record makes, let's say in this case. Um, what are they going to want for that loan? Basically, they're giving you a loan for a service that they're going to hire themselves to do. Usually, sometimes they'll outsource. Uh, well, in the record business, they're going to want to own your master recordings. They're going to want to own the recordings of the songs or a portion of the recording of the songs. In my case, I paid for all the production and I did all the production myself. It's finished, but they're still going to want some of that.
Yeah, of course.
They're still going to want 20% of my masters or something. Okay, so I had to kind of work through that in my brain and go, yeah, man, is there some ego caught up in, yeah, this is on a label, because I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, man, and 70s, 80s, 90s,
Fuck yeah.
whatever. The old school music business. If you're on a label, that was legitimate, man. That gave you credibility, like you said. It made it more credible than if you weren't. But those days, not those days are past, but it's just different now. So the other way to do it is to get someone to distribute your book or your music, hire a distribution company, and there are different tiers of service when it comes to those types of companies, at least in the music business. I don't know how it is in the publishing business. The music business, you have sort of one set of distributors who will take the thing you made and they will offer label services, i.e., they will help you with promotion and whatever, but you're giving something up for that. Maybe it's a piece of your publishing. Maybe it's, uh, maybe you're paying them some amount of money. Uh, and uh and you're also signing a contract with them for X number of years, like 1 year, 2 year, whatever it is. So anything I would put out after, during that term period, I have to put out through them. And then there are kind of bottom tier distributors where, uh, you pay them a fee and they'll distribute your stuff and there's no contract. And meaning distributing, meaning putting in all the streaming platforms. And usually the bottom tier does not offer any sort of physical uh, uh, distribution. The mid tier companies like Symphonic
Yeah.
and some of those other Red and some of those other companies, they offer physical distribution to stores and that sort of thing. Um, and sales on Amazon and whatever, they'll help you with that stuff. Uh, so I think I've chosen to go with one of those latter two things because here's the thing, John, that money that label is going to give you or that publisher is going to give you to, they'll, in certain cases, if you're sought after, they'll offer you an advance, right? They'll offer you money up front, but you have to recoup that money. You have to pay them back that money.
Correct.
Um, I would rather take my own money out of my own pocket, hire a publicist of some sort, like a legitimate publicist, uh, and a legitimate small time distributor who will put your product, and again, I'm sure it's different in the book publishing world, but in the music publishing world, or sorry, the music distribution world, I can pay someone like CD Baby or somebody like that
Right.
to to uh to put my music up on the streaming platforms. Maybe I can pay a little bit extra money and they'll get it onto some playlists. Um, and then if I hire a publicist and I've got a team of people, like a manager and some publicists and some people that'll help me, I'm spending my money either way. And I'd rather spend my money up front on a third party who you know, I'm paying them to do a job, so it's in their best interest to do the job than having a label that's keeping everything in-house and sort of recycling the money back into their own company. Because then it's almost like the government, right? They don't really have
Yeah.
to. I'm in a contractual agreement with them, and they don't really have to deliver at that point, and but so I think I've chosen to do it myself. Again, Kent has talked to me about helping me with
Yeah.
my stuff too, and but there is just this like I whatever's wrong with my brain, ADD wise or neurodivergent wise, like that stuff seems so impossible to me. It's very strange how like I can take on all these. I could write a fucking symphony if I wanted to, and record all of it and do the whole thing, and that doesn't seem impossible to me. That seems very doable and plausible and easy. Not easy, but easier
Yeah.
than trying to take a product to market. It is like I don't understand it, and I don't get it, and so I'm just having to like sort of make myself go on the journey and go on the
Yeah.
ride to do it. And uh
Well, I was talking to like our mutual friend Eric Bishop today about like the Amazon process and publishing and doing an LLC, like the formatting and like all this stuff. And I basically said, dude, the creative part, I always feel like the selling of what we create takes away from the creating of what we do. Like
mhm.
so it's just like I've, and I consider myself pretty good now on the handle of like how to marketing and like the social media thing, but it started to get in the way of like how I can creatively do what I do without like it's just such a it's distracting that the fact you have a I can potentially have a book of 300 or so poems that I whatever, and then now I'm just like fuck, now I gotta get an editor to do poetry. uh
You don't need an editor for poetry, man. Like
well
again,
and I get that, yeah.
yeah, I mean with all due respect to editors, uh there is something like if I'm writing a novel or something, yeah, man, I probably
Yeah,
need
the
someone to look
structure
something
has to
over,
be,
right?
the structure part.
The structure part is great, and this thing that you and I are currently working on, there's some
Yes.
editing stuff that came back,
Yeah,
and
questions to help the
yeah,
reader type stuff.
but I found that all of the questions that were at not all, a lot of and some of the stuff was valid for sure, but most of the questions that were asked by the editor were things that the editor's missing the point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it's like when it comes to something like poetry, I would say that is such a uniquely personal thing and a a thing that is unique unto you. I wouldn't mess with it, man.
Yeah, because my
I
fear is like, oh, they're gonna be like, why is this
now
comma here, or why is this
Well,
word
no.
capitalized?
That's different though. Like structure editing, like that's something that, like honestly, man, I would get someone like Eric to do, or like ask
Yeah,
if they don't mind doing it, or
yeah,
offer to pay, just get a friend to look it over. Like someone who's Eric did that for me with something. He looked at
yeah.
it and I learned a few things about structure and whatnot with it. That I was like, oh, that's how you do that. That's how you
Right.
make that this way. Of course, that stuff. I'm talking about like any sort of creative editing.
Yeah.
I
Well, it's like
wouldn't do
sometimes
that,
too
but
with like poetry, like there's no rules, right? But
there are none.
there's a reason why I break down certain lines or use commas or capitalize certain words, because that's how that thought or phrase came to my head. And my
Hmm.
fear is that I could read these poems how they're supposed to be read. Now, I can't interpret how someone else is going to read this,
Yes.
but in good faith, I can't have someone read that and be like, this comma has to go here, or this shouldn't be capitalized, and I'd be like, there's a reason why I'm capitalizing the word mother, or
Yeah.
faith, or
So
whatever. So it's
great.
like, right. It's like, part of me is just like, I have such weird structure. It comes. I write in such a way that I don't want someone to be like, "Well, this doesn't rhyme." Well, no shit doesn't rhyme. I have no rhymes. I'm not a rhymer,
Right.
or I'm
So
not a couplet like a Shakespearean sonnet or shit like that.
yeah, it's so you are actually giving yourself the best reason possible not to have a publisher right now.
Right.
Because that's all sometimes at least I know in the music business, man, and this is coming from someone who is in my past life was more of a record producer than I am now,
Yeah.
but I still produce records. Uh, sometimes and a producer is basically like an editor for a writer. Like a producer for musicians making a record is sort of like, it's sort of like a movie director as well. It's like this weird sort of amalgamation of jobs. But sometimes as producers, we miss the point that the artist is trying to get across. And I listened to some things recently that I did a few years back, and it's interesting, man. Like as someone in that position, when you would think that I would listen to certain things and go, oh, and I have done this where I go, oh, that's not as bad as I remembered it being. But what I find myself thinking more times than not is, man, I'd really love to apologize to this artist that maybe I overstepped my bounds with what they were trying to do. And maybe I ruined this thing that could have been way greater if I hadn't stuck my nose in it.
Right.
Um, and which is an interesting thing to think when you put as much time into those things as you do, you know? Um, and so there's a reason why artists, meaning painters, they don't have editors. You know what I
They
mean?
don't.
They put
Right.
they
They have
put they put them
critics. Yeah.
they put them well, everyone has got critics, right? But they put themselves down on the canvas or on the paper or the sculpture or whatever. They put themselves completely into it, and they offer it to the world, and that's just what it is. And they have hits and misses. It's very rare that everyone's just a hit all the time. And I mean, look, if you achieve a certain level of notoriety, then all of a sudden everything's a hit. Everybody thinks everything's awesome, and even when you're and I go through this some with Shinedown. I'm not, but where people are like, oh, that's great, and I'm like, no, it's not. you, you don't hear this, and this. This is terrible. It's not great. Stop fooling yourself. uh, but there's a reason why artists don't have editors. Can you imagine someone, uh, me going to Rob Pryor
Yeah.
and going,
Salvador Dali. Yeah.
hey
Well,
man, that red needs to be a blue. I think I really do. For it to speak to me, it needs to be, you know, uh, and again, this kind of goes back to what I would do with bands sometimes. Sometimes I'd be like, and I think I was never making a decision that I didn't think was right. And sometimes it's absolutely the right thing to do, but I'd be like, hey, what if you played this chord underneath this instead of this? Because to my ear, it's a taste thing. And
right.
that's what a lot of producing is, right? It's taste stuff. But when I listen back to it years later, I'm like, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't done that. Would it be better?
Right.
And so I'm kind of maybe I'm softening in my old age, to those types of things, and I'm really just at a place where I want artists and people just to be themselves. There is enough corporate fuckery that goes on with art
Yeah.
for and has been going on with art to you know so many great fucking things have been buried by corporate fuckery in art and music and literature that I'm sick of it. Um, and so I think that you kind of answered your own question there with that. It's like I don't want anybody telling me what to do with this. Well, then don't let them do it.
Right.
Just put it out. Um, and you know, John, you could be. I mean, I'm not. I'm maybe not telling seeing that. I'm not telling the future right here, but like you never fucking know. You could end up being a literary great, and we have no idea that John is a literary great because you
He was
know
held up on some
he was
fucking.
held correct. And so
Do
I
you
think
think someone like Van Gogh or Michelangelo or uh artists in that time frame, like the amount of do you think they had a pressure on them to keep producing? Because when Starry Night or the Sistine Chapel was first done, yeah, people were amazed by it, but it took decades and years and hundreds of years for people to realize the impact that art had. When they were
Hmm.
creating at the time, after Starry Night or Dolly, whatever it is, they did their up the opus. Do you think they had pressure to relive that? Like, I wonder, like, what the pressure was back then as an artist to appease their fan. Like, did they have fans back then? That's what I'm trying to always trying to wrap my head around. Like, how they would have dealt with the social media world today in
Well,
terms of art.
Michelangelo definitely had to have some sort of a following, right? I mean, he's famous enough to be tapped
Yeah,
to do these works. I don't think Van Gogh was, right? Van Gogh was kind of obscure and unknown.
correct.
Uh, someone like Da Vinci. I think Da Vinci was smart enough to know that he knew
Monet,
better,
yeah,
maybe that
yeah.
he knew better than everyone else. Either way, uh, I don't know, man. I don't know enough about that world to know,
Like when you read a
to
hit song, to your point, people are going to anticipate, I want the next Shinedown hit song. This is a Shinedown hit. How come this song is different? How come this album is different? When it comes to like painting and stuff like that, I wonder if they get the same scrutiny, like talking to artists today, where like, is it the same type of scrutiny or level of like angst as an artist?
well, it depends on where it comes from. I mean, look, man, there's always going to be if you're a young band on a label and you've had a hit, there is an immense amount of pressure to do that again. Do it
Yeah.
again. Just do it again. You know? And that stuff doesn't happen like that, especially when something has happened organically without a label or without any sort of business. And then all of a sudden you find yourself tied up in the business after that thing becomes successful, and then the business wants you to make it happen again. And uh, it's why it's so important to have if you're going to be I'm speaking from the music standpoint, but if to have a really understanding and accomplished A&R rep or something at the label, someone whoever your champion is there, to know that like sometimes these things don't just happen overnight,
Yeah.
and to give you your space to let them happen. Um, there's a difference between that sort of pressure and the pressure you put on yourself to do that, and um, either one of those things can ruin stymie is better than ruin, can
Yeah.
stymie that part of the process. Um, uh, the best art happens when it speaks to you and when you just let it happen. Um, Brent has a new term, which is we're not writing songs for trophies, which I like that.
Yeah.
Um, because if you start writing songs for trophies, it's not going to be real. If you start writing stories for trophies, it's not going to be real. It's got to be in you, and it has to want to come out. Um, and look, man, that's something I've been having trouble with writing this new Shinedown record. Is I think with just all the chaos around me, it's not that the subject matter isn't there. It's that I don't have anything that's like jumping to come out right now. It will, it'll happen. But being able to just wait on that process to take place is important. Um, but I don't know if a like I'm thinking about a Van Gogh, like that seemed like someone who was just relying on the thing to speak to them. I mean, look, the only thing I have is my terrible paintings that I've done, right?
Right.
Like that I hope I'm getting my message across when you look at them. They're kind of finger paintings. They're super bad. But maybe they have a message to them, right? That's the way I think about it. And my goal was and is to put out the paintings with poetry. I'd love to put out a book where it's like a coffee table book where it's like, one or two pages of the paintings, and there's some poetry and a poem that I've written, and they
Yeah.
don't necessarily go together, but they're just different parts of
Uh-huh.
me, right? But like I have certain ones of those paintings that I feel like are better than others. And um do I get yeah, I get down when I get finished with one and it's not very good. Like I had this really clever idea for one, the last one I did, and I haven't painted in a minute. It's been a second. Probably been a couple months. But the last one that I did, I had this really great idea for this concept, and I still like the concept. The painting's kind of crap. I mean, it's like I don't even know if the point gets across because it's kind of bad. Uh, and so that got me down, right? Maybe that's why I put it down for a second. And I was bummed out about that was no good. Um, uh, so I wonder if, and again, I'm not Van Gogh, no way being inside of his head, but like, I'm sure he went through these periods of like, he's let himself down, probably. I've let myself down. I'm, dude, that is the thing constantly with music and constantly with art and constantly with writing. I suck. I'm not as good as I thought I was because you get these glimpses of yourself where you like you can almost see yourself outside of your body when you do something that's really good. And you're like, wait a second, maybe I do know what I'm doing, but it's super fleeting. And then
Yeah.
you go back to, no, I suck. I'm not very good at this. Never mind. I thought for half a second that I had proven that I was good enough to do this. But no, I'm back down at the bottom again. That's the record making process for me is like you start out something like attention, and you're like, I suck. I'm not very good at this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And then I got to the end of the production part of it, and it's like, okay, I completed it. Yes, now the guy that I want to mix it can mix it. And then that guy starts mixing it badly. And I'm like, shit, what do I do now? And then it's like, well, now I'm going to have to mix it myself. Well, I don't want to mix it. I suck at mixing. And then I go through this whole thing about I suck at mixing. And then finally, somehow I get to the other side of it and all the mixes are done and they're pretty good. And you're like, oh, I am pretty good at this thing. And then fast forward to either making my rock opera record or making uh, Planet Zero. And that whole process starts over again. Oh shit, now I got to write songs again. I suck at writing songs. This is going to be terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, wait a second. I wrote one that's okay. All right, I could survive that. Now I got to write the next one. But fuck, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And then, oh man, that one was really no good. Oh, I really do suck. I'm terrible. Then you write the next one. Oh, this is pretty good. Okay, I know what I'm doing. Then the next one. No shit. Never mind. And it goes, and then it goes to the production process. Same thing. Oh God, I don't know if I remember how to produce a record and mix a record, and and then you get to and you're done with it, and you're like, oh, I made it, I survived, and now I'm back at the bottom right now, going through that all over again with this new Shinedown record, all over again, like I've never done it before. And so every artist does that. I have to think they do it, even if they don't admit it, because I fail to believe that just like people look at somebody like the Chili Peppers, or they look at Foo Fighters, or they look at whoever the popular,
Right.
Metallica and Green Day, and and it's like, oh, they just constantly put out great stuff. It's just always great, and it's like, yeah, I fail to believe that they don't go through that process. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's just me,
What
but I don't think it is. And so, there's always going to be uh, a reckoning of some sort, like a hammer that you're going to have to avoid getting hit by when you're doing creative things. Uh, whether that comes from the business, an A&R rep, a label telling you now you got to make something great. I need another hit, or it's you doing it to yourself. There's going to be a hammer to avoid at all costs, or at all times rather. Um, so, dude, whether they want to admit it or not, you know. But then I wonder about someone like Dali, right? You look at Salvador Dali, and he had a swagger and he had a thing. And so did
oh yeah.
Picasso. They had this
He had a
swagger,
look
right?
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, did he just arrive at a uh did he arrive at a place where you know, he went through this period of doubt and struggle between both of them, so Dali and Picasso, right? Where they you know were like this caterpillar, and they're figuring it out, and then they get inside of a cocoon, and they they become goo, and they reform themselves into Picasso and Dali. And then when they come out of the that really hurt. I gotta not talk with my hands. When they come out of the cocoon into this new realized form, then they're unstoppable, and they just know that that's how they are. And so then they can put on this swagger, and they know that everything that they're going to paint after that is going to be a classic, and it's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be amazing, and there's nothing that anyone can do to tell them otherwise. Or behind closed doors, were they going through some sort of doubt like that, where it's like, I suck now. Oh, wait a second. No, I just remembered how to be brilliant again. I got it. You know, I don't know. I personally don't have any other point of reference other than the roller coaster ride of that thing,
Yeah.
that up and down and
What's
up and down and up and down.
the Familia Sagrado? Was it Barcelona, the church?
Sagrada Familia. It's a
Yes.
basilica, right? In Barcelona.
Amazing. It was. I know we talked about that with some of the early episodes, but like, what's crazy now talking about this stuff is that is a living art that's still being created and still being worked on. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. Art like that, people off the street from around the world can walk in there and see this art before it's even finished. And it's like,
Hmm.
I wonder if the artist, the people they're doing all this stuff, whether people leave review, I don't know how you review that place, but like they're like, I wish Jesus would carve this way, or I wish the stained glass this way. Like, how does an
I don't
art
know. I
how
don't
does
know
an
if
artist
anybody
deal with
has that
that?
has balls that big
To
to
tell someone who's
critique the
creating,
Sagrada
right?
Familia. Yeah.
But like, to that point though, it's like you are working on something that people have access to before it's even finished. Like, imagine
Yeah.
running a Shinedown record where anyone off the street can come and go out of the studio, listening to you guys create that. Like, it'd be super fascinating to me how that
I
would
think
not sway the decisions.
I think it would be super disappointing for people. Honestly, like I'm not kidding, man. I think it would be super disappointing because I think that if you saw the the scars that go into that sort of thing, man, like, and I say scars, it's not all doom and gloom, man. But if you saw the mask slipped for half a second and you saw what it takes to make a record and what the record making process is, I don't know if it would mean as much than if you just because for me it's like I'll never be able to listen to anything I've ever worked on and hear it for the first time, really hear it for the first time ever, because I have memories of what it took to do it, of performances, of you know starting a mix three different times to get something right, you know. So I don't want to take that magic. I wouldn't want that magic to be taken away from the listener, from the person
Yeah.
who's going to enjoy it. But to your point, man, about Sagrada Familia, that is a really interesting thing because we often talk about when we're traveling, we go to all these beautiful places and we see these cathedrals or basilicas or architecture around the world, and we're like, no one does this anymore.
No one.
Everything is functional crap now. Like there's very, very like, when's the last time you walked into a new building and went, "Oh, this is
Oh,
beautiful."
look at the architecture.
Like really beautiful.
No, it's usually an
Yeah.
old building that they're renovating.
Yeah. And you walk into Sagrada Familia. If any of you out there are not familiar with La Sagrada Familia, look that up. Uh, and just look at pictures of it.
Great coffee
It it
table book.
it it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It renews my faith in humanity as a beautiful species, and what we're capable of um, when we put our hearts into something,
It was
not just our
crazy.
minds. Of course, the mind has to go into it, but the
Yeah.
heart has to be there.
We go
The
up into like the
desire
different.
to do hard things.
Yeah. And like when we went to like the different spires and stuff, when you look out the windows, you see like the littlest of details, like the brush strokes or like the carving or like the way they shape something. It's like it's to have that type of a creative mind to
Yeah,
how easy it would be to go to the top and be like, no one's gonna see this shit. Who gives a
right.
fuck? But they
Well, that
care, to your
yeah,
point.
yeah. The I mean, you go up there and you see uh so um at the top of some of these spires are basically supposed to be the communion, right? And so there's wine, there grapes on top, and then wheat, stalks of wheat on top of another one to mean bread and wine, the body and the blood, and they're done with mosaics, so mosaic tiles on these spires that are hundreds and hundreds of feet in the air. That from the ground you just see purple
Yeah.
grapes and sort of beige colored bread, but when you get up top, you realize that it's little mosaic pieces of tile on each one of those that makes those things up. And like, again, man, just the amount of craftsmanship and care that goes into those sort of things, it really just renews my faith in a lot of things.
Well, it's
But if you ever have a chance to go there, I mean, that is a like it, look, there are other iconic things around the world that I've seen, and you see them, and you're like, okay, that's impressive. The Sydney Opera House, the Eiffel
that
Tower,
Sistine
the
Chapel was amazing. That's
Statue of
incredible.
Liberty. I've never seen Sistine Chapel, uh, but there's something about walking into Sagrada Familia,
Oh,
and it is just
it'll level you. And that was the
it
first time outside of Brent where all three of you guys we actually went into like a did something like that together too.
yeah. And I've been back one time since with Kelly, and I was glad I got to bring her there and let her experience it as well,
Right.
because it is just like it's I mean, like, even St. Stephen's in Vienna is awesome, and some of
The
these
Cologne
other
Cathedral. Yeah.
cathedrals are beautiful, and these Gothic cathedrals, right?
Oh,
They're beautiful, but there's something different about the Sagrada Familia when you walk in, because the whole idea of this place was that this I forget how the guy's name escapes me, and I can't remember it, who the architect was, and you put it at the top. But his idea was to bring the outside inside, because he felt closer to God outside in nature than he did inside
inside
of a
closed
church. And
doors. Yeah.
I feel that viscerally. Like, that's how I am. Like, I once I was talking at a church function one time, and I said that. I said, outside is church for me. Like, nature is church for me. Like, I always feel closer to God out amongst the trees and forests and stuff than I do in a church. And so he wanted that to happen. So when you walk in there, everything is flowers, and there's one side, the stained glass on one side of the church where the morning light comes in is purple, and oh, I'm sorry, is it the opposite? One of the two. One side is oranges and red, and the other sides are purples and blues. And it's supposed to represent, I think it's the oranges and reds are the morning thing, and then as the sun goes over to the other side of the
Sets.
basilica, it sets, it comes through the blues and so it's more like dusk looking. The pillars in the church look like trees. They go up, and in the top they spread off into
Branch out. Yeah.
branches. And I mean, it's just and it's built on top of another basilica. You can see the original basilica
Yeah.
is downstairs. It's man, it's just something else, man. I could go on and on about it, but if it's ever something you get a chance to see, if you ever get a chance to go to Barcelona and go inside the Sagrada Familia, do it. If you don't get a chance to do that, at least look up some YouTube videos, and or just look up pictures of it, because it's you know,
Like
it is
how badass it is to be like, what'd you build? Oh, I built this stone wall. I did this garden. And not to take away from these people, but like, oh, I built a basilica. What? Like
well,
it's
right.
just
And the fact that it's still being completed, right? The
correct.
gentleman, and there's an old side and a new, you can tell the old side and the new side of it too, which is interesting. But I think right now the gentleman who began the process in the 1800s, uh, his great grandson now, or great
Great
grandson,
grandson. Yep.
yeah, is in charge of it now. So they've kept it in the family, and they're seeing through, and all they have are his clay models that he did. Like, he did blueprints, but they got lost or something. So now all they've got are his models that he built of how this thing is supposed to look when it's done. And so they're actually quarrying the stone. A lot of the stone comes from the UK now, because it had to be a certain kind of stone. But they're able to use modern building techniques now, so they're actually going to have it completed within our lifetime, which is it's pretty amazing, man, that we
Yeah.
get to see something like that completed. And it's just sort of quietly going on. It's like no one really talks about it, which is astonishing to me, because I would think that it would be something that, from an
I mean, it's
artistic
eventually it's
standpoint,
got to
and
be like a ninth wonder of the world. It would have to be, I would think.
it's so phenomenal, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's uh I've never walked into a church that made me feel like that. And it's interesting because there's lots of other people in there with you, but it's so intimate feeling. It's this mixture of awe and uh like, I guess the best way to describe it is, you walk in, you're so in awe that at the same time this place feels overwhelmingly beautiful and overwhelmingly large, but at the same time it makes you feel really close and intimate about this experience that you're having. And so it's this vastness and smallness all at the same time. Um, and of course, in a very Joe Rogan way, Joe Rogan said that when he went there, it looked like a DMT experience, which is
Yeah.
because with a DMT experience, you get this crystallization of reality, this multicolored crystallizing of the world around you. And so I can totally see how that would be a thing too.
Right.
You know, it's it's interesting, man. So
That the idea of being inebriated for that's like whether it's drinking or like weed or whatever mushroom, whatever it is people do, it's interesting how the thought your brain opens up or like thinks differently. I've always been
man,
like, and I'm not obviously I'm not a drug person or but like I know we've talked with Ed Baker and stuff, our tour manager,
mhm,
like who knows some of these tribes and
yeah, Aboriginal tribes and stuff. Yeah.
Aboriginals, indigenous peoples. They talk
Yep.
about the ayahuasca and like these sweat lodges where it's a spiritual thing where like you awakens your mind and you might be scared, you might not be able to go through it. It's just like it's crazy that a couple of shots of beer can make someone have liquid courage or I don't know. It's just weird how like the brain is so wired to be affected by these different things, and it's just
I've
I wish we could harness that stuff sober, where it's just like fuck, like just vast knowledge.
I've stopped thinking about it like being sober or inebriated. And this is, we can start wading into the woo-woo waters right now if you'd
Oh,
like
hell
to.
yeah, hell yeah.
Uh, because we had a woo-woo plan for this podcast. We started talking about other things instead of what we had planned on talking about. But the way that I've started to view it is people say, come back to reality. Like I was, I sobered up, I came back to reality, or I, you know, I went on this ayahuasca trip and, or I took DMT, I smoked DMT, or I took psilocybin, I ate mushrooms, and I went to this other place that seemed more real to me than reality, and then I came back to reality. I'm starting to think and feel like maybe that's more real than where we are now. Like
Oh,
that actually is reality. And when we do those things, we get closer to reality. We get closer to where it's the red pill in the matrix. It's like you take the red pill and you break out of the matrix into something else. And you break out of the machine. And it goes back to something we were talking about last week where we talked about how uh uh we feel like I feel like I'm wearing an uncomfortable suit sometimes, or we feel like we're not this place isn't real. It's like there's something else, and I know it's out there, and I just can't access it. And maybe we're in quote unquote, not I don't mean this in like a bad way. We're quote unquote imprisoned here by our own accord to live this life that we're living. And we had this sense that there's something else just past this veil that we can't see. And isn't it interesting that when we take substances, when we drink, when we smoke weed, when we eat, we eat gummies or take psilocybin or smoke DMT, which I have not smoked DMT. I would love to. I'm just scared to death of it.
yeah. I'm kind
Um,
of curious too now.
but well, because everyone says it's like you literally die. Like you feel like you that's the other thing about doing all of these things. If you do enough psilocybin, you will experience a death. You will go through an ego death, like where you literally feel as though you are dead. Same thing with DMT. It's like people who have smoked DMT are like, well, I've done it this time. Now I'm dead. Doesn't matter how many times they do it. They feel doesn't feel
Huh.
like they feel like they've died every time. And then they see this other existence, this other world, and these other creatures uh that other people's experiences are wildly similar with these places that the DMT world they call it, right? Um, Same thing with psilocybin. People experience wildly similar things. And it's like, okay, are we chemically breaking down the wall between what we're going through right now and where we're supposed to be? Because this feeling that people have when they go and do these trips of it's more real than anything I've ever experienced. And also it's a place that I know that I've been before. In fact, sometimes in certain instances, people say it feels like it's a place that I'd been in for thousands of years and I was just going back to it. What is that? and also the similarities between near death experiences and DMT trips, and like the fact that they are wildly similar in
Hmm.
nature. Um, perhaps this isn't the real world. Perhaps like we when you access even something like alcohol, even that I would say that'd be the dumb end of the hammer. DMT might be the tip of the spear,
Yeah.
and alcohol might just be the dumb end of the wooden stick at
Yeah.
the end of it, right? But even with why do we open ourselves up more? Why do we get more open when we drink? Why do we uh have the best night we'll never remember? You know, uh, are you starting to, is that the first fray at the bottom of the veil, where you start to pick the veil apart
Yeah.
a little bit? You know, why does my personality come out when I drink? Why do I become the person that I wish I was? Why am I being suppressed on a daily basis to not be and look, I'm not saying it's a positive experience for everybody, because some people drink and they go out of their minds. um I'm saying there definitely is a chemical reaction that is going on, that's
Well, it will explain like the control of stuff like that, where it's like, oh, you can't talk about DMT or you can't
well,
get access to it. It's like, what are they hiding you from? Your own health or
yeah.
the version of the health
so
they think you need?
so no one has ever OD'd on DMT ever, to my knowledge. No one has ever overdosed on psilocybin. Now, I'm not saying you can't get ultra sick from eating mushrooms. That's different. But like if you just took a capsule of psilocybin, to my knowledge, no one has ever overdosed on those things, right? But yet they're Schedule One substances, and DMT is a recent Schedule One substance, where up through the early 2000s, you could just order DMT, have it shipped to your house, and smoke it. But then all of a sudden, and here's the thing about a DMT trip and again, I'm speaking from reading
Yeah.
and doing
Podcasts and
research,
seeds. Yeah.
not from experience here. But the trip lasts about 10 minutes, and there are no residual side effects. Like I'm not saying there aren't leftover memories and things that might mess with you, but you come back and there's no hangover, there's no nothing. You're right as
Interesting.
rain. You're right as rain 10 minutes later. Um, and uh, dude, yet some of these people take these 10-minute trips, and uh, some people feel like they've been gone longer. Sativa is another one that's interesting. Ari Shafir, the comedian, has a there's a podcast. You can actually find the podcast and watch it happen, which is interesting. He smoked sativa on a podcast and went catatonic. Right? So it's just same thing with DMT. Like if you smoke enough of it, you're out. You need to have someone there with you, to
Correct.
make sure that you don't fall over or whatever. Um, but when he was waking up from this thing, it's on this podcast. He's out for about 10 minutes, and they start waking him up, and he starts freaking out waking up. And he recounts later that during that trip, he smoked the sativa, and then he lived this whole other life. Like it felt like
Jesus.
forever. Like he's like, I had a wife, I had kids, I
God.
had like this whole thing happen, and then I start getting pulled out of it. You know, Again, is that more real than this? Was he getting pulled back into the matrix basically, rather than the other way around?
Yeah.
Uh, and again, that's just his interpretation of what happened. Who knows, right? I would choose to believe it seems very sincere about it. Uh, so, you know, is is this real? Like, is this reality? Or is this just something we've chosen to be a part of, and we're here, and you know, we're here until we're let out of it.
Right.
Uh, Again, I'm not because I deal with the headspace issues that I deal with, and I deal a lot with, we've talked about it a lot with suicidal ideation and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Some of my thinking on this is, and this is no reason for people to worry about me or anything. It's just the way my brain works.
Yep.
You know, if this is a test, is the test to see who can endure this life the longest, or who can figure it out and get out. you know? And it's
Yeah,
like
no, it's
it's like is this, are we Houdini in a barrel underwater with chains around us?
right.
And it's like, you know, well, if you look at it from Houdini's standpoint, he's like, I win if I figure out how to get out of here faster than if I just stay here until the end and pass on, you know? And so,
Right.
like, sometimes because this life is so uncomfortable, I wonder if the test isn't to see who can
So
realize, if the test isn't to realize, uh, uh, who can figure out that this isn't real and check out quicker,
like I wonder if
and
so you saying like maybe this is all hypothetical, obviously we're idiots, but like possibly where depression is a form of DMT.
perhaps depression is a form of, okay, I never thought about it that
Because it would
way.
make sense
But
why
but
doctors prescribe medication for depression to kind of control it.
right. Well, so something was said to me a long time ago that made total sense. And it was, and I don't remember who said it. I don't know if a doctor told me this or if I read this somewhere. But I've been dealing with this depression thing for a long time, since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And it seemed to get worse as I get older. Uh, but they said that people with depression can see reality better than people without it. Can can see the world, the real world, for what it is. And I felt that very hard. Like, it's like I feel like it's almost a superpower to be able to really see what's going on around me better. And it's just kind of depressing. So in that way, I've never thought about it being a form of DMT. Maybe depressed people, and I'm saying maybe, I don't know. Maybe depressed people have one foot closer out of the matrix than people who don't. Because if you're happy and blissful all the time here, everything's happy and blissful, and you're just fine. It's Cypher in the Matrix when
Matrix.
he's eating
Yeah.
the steak, and he's like, I know this doesn't exist, but man, it tastes good, and I just want to be here for it. I want to be rich. I want to eat steak. Give me all this, and I will live blissfully inside this Matrix forever, or until I die. Right. So people and I want that. Here's the thing. I want the drug of that happiness. I would love to, like, and that's kind of what we're chasing, and we've talked about here before, happiness isn't a state, joy is a state, right? So
Yeah.
even joy, like, I would love to be joyful, you know, um, more than I am. But what happens when you so it, again, I know this is kind of a weird concept, but say that I achieved the joy. Let's just hypothetically say
You
that
found joy.
I work on myself. I go to enough therapy. I uh I pray enough. I go to church enough. I take enough meds to where all of a sudden I wake up one day and that all coalesces into Eric is now joyful. Eric wakes up every morning and Eric has his eggs, and Eric can't wait to go to the gym, and then Eric can't wait to come out here and play music, and then Eric can't wait to pet his puppy dogs and kiss his beautiful wife and go out on his boat and come back home. And then Eric's so joyful he can't wait to go out on tour. And he's just living this great life, which is, I think, what everyone aspires to. I'm not saying I don't aspire to that. Okay. But hypothetically, what if that's just the numbing agent? Like,
Yeah.
the reason why that's the goal is so you can forget about the thing that you think that's not right. There's something off, man. There's something off about all of this in my mind and in the way that I think. There is something that I'm not seeing, something that I'm not privy to, that I think I should be privy to, or that I'm used to being privy to, but isn't there right now anymore.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how else to describe it, right? And there is this, like, there's this veil right here that I just want to be able to put my hand through and go, oh, that's the thing that I forgot about. There's something I've forgotten. And what's interesting, man, is I don't remember which UFO abduction story it is, or which. Oh, I do remember what it was. It was the Chris Bledsoe stuff that we've talked about,
Yep.
where something that he was some information he was given, right, in one of these exchanges, was that these spiritual beings felt sorry for humans because they didn't remember who they are. and when I heard that too, man, that like resonated with me. Since we're in woo-woo time and we can talk about aliens and other
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
woo-woo stuff. Um, that thought of the fact that we've forgotten it, that just rings with me. It's like there is something I've forgotten. And again, man, I'm obsessed with near-death experiences, right? And I'm obsessed with them. I watch a fair bit of them, right? When they're around, I'll get off on a tangent on them. And one of the things, man, is you know, these people go to a place where they're like, oh, I know this place and I know these beings that are around me, and like this is very familiar. Like I've been here before for a long time. Uh, maybe that's coloring the way that I think about these things. I don't think so, but perhaps,
yeah.
I
Have
don't
you
know. That
have you yeah, I mean we go further down this. When you come to like this was me, some times where I've been like mad at God or had to talk to him in a way that I normally don't talk to him. Just like, hey, not like necessarily I need help, but like, hey, where are you? Like some advice or stuff like that, right? Have you found that when you have that talk or open up that kind of like that same wavelength with God, that you kind of I don't know if it's purpose or like you kind of get the answer you need, but you feel like you're on a different level, like you're kind of looking down at yourself because you had the courage to ask for help or talk to God? Or is that I don't know if that I've explained that the right way.
ask that a different way. I'm just trying to understand exactly what you're saying.
Like,
I
do
mean, you
you
didn't.
think like when you talk to God or
Yeah,
hey, the moment after you talk to him, and there's some clarity that comes with that, whether you get the
yeah.
answer you want or you actually kind of figure out what whether he led you there or just you asked you the question got you to where you're supposed to be. Do you ever kind of look back at yourself or kind of see yourself before the minute you started talking to God and then like you see a version of yourself that didn't ask God for help and you kind of like see yourself like back in the distance?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, are you asking like, is there a like some relief to asking God for
Yeah,
help
like
and looking back? Why didn't I do that?
correct. That kind of, I look, I kind of not close my eyes, but I can kind of picture myself in that same position, doing the exact opposite, not asking God for help. And I see that per version of me that's just like dwindling on thumbs, like fucking just dusting away. Where the version
Yeah,
I asked for help, I'm like, okay, cool. I might not have the answers I needed, but I'm in a better place because I wasn't afraid to at least, hey, just check it in, like need some help here, whatever type stuff.
yeah. I stopped being prideful like that a long time ago,
Yeah.
about not asking God for help. Uh, I I mean, what a resource, right? It's the problem that you look at, like, all right, look, Kanye West is an example. He has turned completely away from God after he went to God for a while, right? And his reasoning was, I asked God for help and he didn't answer my prayers. That's been his thing. I asked God for help and he didn't answer my prayers. Well, that's not how it works, you know. Um, you know, there's a meme out there that I saw, or a saying. I guess maybe not a meme, but maybe I saw it in meme form, and I wish I had it where I could read it. But it said something like, I asked God for courage, and He gave me challenges to face. You know, I asked God for, uh, uh, you know, I asked God for wealth, and He, you know, put a job in front of me. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's not always going to be what you want it to be.
Right.
I've asked God for things and the it's not meant for me. I have a different path ahead of me, and therefore I don't get what I asked for, but I get the thing that I never knew I wanted.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and so what a resource to have. You know, but I mean, dude, I guess for me the closest thing to that, as we talked about recently, is I went through a period of having no real faith.
Yeah.
Um, But I'll tell you what's interesting, man, is how like hard times flush the chumps, right? And so I would go through a hard period and all of a sudden I'd be talking to God, you know?
Right.
Right?
Alone by yourself. It's on the
Yeah.
dock. Yep.
Yeah. And so um, it's something else that I do though, man, that I really work at when it comes to that. I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, man. I'm just sort of spitballing all of this right now. But one thing that I've really started to concentrate on is being grateful,
Yeah.
gratitude
Yeah.
all the time. Like gratitude when I shouldn't have, not, you should always have gratitude. I said, but gratitude when it seems like I shouldn't have gratitude. Like we talked about the day that I hurt my arm. The once I stopped throwing up and came back to reality was instead of going, why me, dude? Because that's honestly the last thing I needed right now, like the last thing I needed. Um, but I went, I know there's a reason for this. Thank you for everything that I've got. Thank you for my blessings, my wife, my family, my friends, my band, my
Yeah.
everything, and just said, just let it be. Just that's, I'll be honest with you, man. This is one of the reasons why with my record, the sort of the this seemingly asinine process that I'm going through of one step forward, four steps back, one step, two steps forward, three steps back to do this thing. One of the reasons why I'm not beating myself up about it anymore and I'm just letting it happen, however it's going to happen, is because I did something. My brother-in-law and I do Bible study together. We've talked about that, and one thing we talked about was turning things over to God and just being like, because you should turn everything over, right? You should just be okay with turning it all over.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a difficult thing to do. So we talked about taking baby steps. Let's turn a couple of things over. And one of those things I did was with my record was like, I don't know what to do with this. So I'm going to turn this over. Not that I'm not going to take steps and do the work, but I'm trusting that whatever happens is what it's supposed to happen. Whether it's going to be a label or it's going to be a distribution company or there's going to be the graphic novel will come out whenever it comes out. Maybe it won't ever come out. I don't know. But but turning these things over and just going, show me how it's supposed to be done. Show me, lead me wherever I'm supposed to be led to have this happen. And so that's one of the reasons why I haven't worried about it too much. It's like, and the same thing with the arm, right? It's like, hey man, there's a reason for this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go meet that reason. I'm gonna march out there and whatever that reason is, I'll figure it out. Or maybe I won't. Maybe there's a side reason for my arm getting hurt. Maybe me hurting my arm helped someone else out, and I'll never know that,
Right.
you know but just trusting that that's part of the process. And so um but as far as yeah, you know what, I guess so, man. Like I guess in a different way what you're asking is I do look back on me not asking God for help for certain things, not ever comparing asking and not asking for the
Yeah.
same thing, but like looking back on like, why didn't I rely on that resource that I have
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So
Like
I don't know.
when something good happens, are you? I mean, obviously, I think the when something bad is happening or gonna happen, or you got bad news impending, the first reaction is to always God, I need you. But when something good happens, are you just as quick to thank you, God, or is there a delay in terms of how you like God? I mean, this the God I picture as someone that is it's not demanding someone to say thank you, or the fact that you can just open yourself up to Him. I think, or whatever. That's the win for both sides. But like I find myself times where something good happens or like you get great news. Obviously, I firmly believe that God puts you on this earth to find your purpose and you have to put the work in yourself, but he gives you the tools to be that version of you
Hmm.
deserve to be. And when some of that stuff happens, at least lately, it's coming out of the pandemic where I'm like, fuck, I'm just grateful, man. Like, I'm grateful. I'm just happy. Like, thank you for another day with my dad. And there's other kids out there, sons that don't have fathers right now or
Yep.
and stuff. Or like, oh man, I'm so grateful for this new client, this new job, or this new podcast guest I got. Like, this is so great. I'm super proud. And like, I found myself organically doing that more, where it doesn't seem like I am just like rubbing my nose at the fact that I have a God that I can talk to, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
Yeah. No, dude, that makes total sense. It's there's this humbling when when you humble yourself with those things.
Yeah.
It's not so much about you know, like being humble about the fact that these things happen and being
Yeah.
grateful for them. And the difficult thing is humbling yourself and being grateful when things don't go the way you want them to go or something bad does happen. It's also practicing gratitude for the things that would seem asinine to be grateful for. like my father passing is one of those things. And it's like I've tried to be grateful for the things that I've learned since then and the things that have been put on me since then. Uh, and the things that have been put on my family since then. Um, because again, we talked again, a few weeks ago about faith. We talked about you can't have one foot in and one foot out. It's like you got to be all in on what's going
Uh-huh.
on. And uh, I'll be honest with you, man. I had a couple of things today with my family that different things, some tests being run on some people,
Yeah.
and some other things going on with someone else that I was really worried about, and I was really praying hard for an outcome that I'm not used to getting right now because things have been rough, right? And I wasn't, here's the thing. I was already so accepting of either one. And I think that comes with living and that comes with things not going well occasionally, but you kind of realize you're going to have to face down one or the other. You're either facing down the outcome you want or the outcome you don't want. And so I allowed for both of those possibilities, I guess, in my mind before I even asked anything, before I asked for help with it. First thing I did was be grateful for. I prayed about how grateful I was for things, and then I prayed for these things to please go the way I would like them to go. If they don't, then I understand, and really meaning that, like, okay, if they don't, then already having this contingency plan of like how I would deal with these things not going well.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, they both things kind of one thing went really well, and another thing is working itself out, and um the important thing to remember, it's like everyone prays when the plane takes off. Not many people pray when the plane lands,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And it's remembering to pray when the plane lands. Like, okay, I land the plane, and I mean literally and figuratively. Like I always ask God,
Yeah.
deliver me back when the plane lands, remembering to go, hey, I appreciate that. Thank you. So when the plane landed today, it's like, hey, thank you. Be grateful for that. The fact
Yeah.
that things are um did go in a good direction. And also, man, is if they had gone in a bad direction, not being hypocritical and going, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? What are we supposed to do about this? Help me get through this now. Because if you what do they say? This is the hardest thing for me. You can't have maybe it was you. I think maybe you brought this up. Maybe you didn't. I don't remember. But Danny Trejo has this. I'm saying it wrong, but basically, like, you can't have worry and faith at the same time.
Yeah.
They can't exist in the same place. That's really difficult for me because I'm a worrier. But so I've tried to work it into, instead of worrying, going, okay, what's the plan? What do we need to do? How do I need to address this? What needs to happen? How can I help? What needs, so again, man, I think that it's interesting to me that so tell me just real quickly, when you ask that question about, you look back at if you've asked God for help or not asked God for help, and the way you look at the other potential outcome of not asking, like, what does that look like for you? I mean,
In terms of seeing the older version of myself that maybe
right.
not, yeah,
Yeah.
I just think of like all the times I never did from like middle school through college, certain times where I certainly should have. And I'm not saying that maybe the outcome would have been different, but I shouldn't. I feel guilty that for 5, 6 years I kind of swayed away, not from the faith or not that I didn't agree with. I had a lot of anger, resentment, especially with stuff on my dad and stuff, and so
Right.
I projected that on my relationship with God. But now I look back and see those old versions of myself where it's like, man, if I had just talked more, maybe I wouldn't have had the anger. But maybe again, God's sick how he's trying to figure me out. Not sick, but like in a twisted way, kind of like I needed to have that anger to realize that my anger was misguided. But
Mm,
even still, like even then, was a kid, I'm like I would have these issues. I'm like I'm not praying. Like why do I have to pray twice a day before school and all this stuff? Where it's like, does that make me? I mean, this again, this is me just kind of rambling, but like the idea of like being a good. I never understood I love the structure of the Catholicism, the Catholic Church. That's how I was raised and grew up, and I still love communion, like the actual the Rosary and the Holy Thursday and the washing of the feet and the adoration of the cross, like all this stuff. that I love about that. But the parts I don't love are the idea that you have to go to church every Sunday to be a good Christian, or you have to
Right.
pray every day. And some of that stuff, I get it. I get what it's tied to, but like the praying and the talking to God, it's like I look back and I go, man, sometimes I just wish I could have said, like, looked at myself like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, talk to him. Like, he's there. Like,
Yep.
you're the first person to defend someone making fun of the Catholic Church. So it's like, why can't you, in the privacy of your home, talk to me? So it's like, it's
So
just like a weird
do you
disconnect.
and you know how I am with some of the Catholicism stuff. We've talked about
Yeah,
that,
for
you know.
sure.
But like, do you how much of being a Catholic plays into that with you? Where everything was pomp and circumstance and doing things, you know, saying, you know, however many Hail Marys
Yeah,
and reciting these, you know, these creeds and you know, you have to go to confession so that you can confess to a priest instead of talking to God. And you know, really, I think at the core of Catholicism is the fact that the Pope, the Holy Father, is the only one who really has a conduit to God, right?
right.
And it has to flow
Yeah,
through
yeah, for sure.
all of these levels before it can get to you. Like, how much of that affected that with you, where you're like, why don't I just talk to God? You know, it's like,
Well, that's actually a part of it where I'm just like, I don't need this. I don't need these other people that have just as much access to God as I do telling me that I am not being a good practicing Christian or Catholic, whatever this is. It's like just because you wear the collar doesn't mean. I mean, obviously, all the respect to priests and any of the people that
mm,
serve their faith.
correct, man.
Um,
Let,
it's I
let's be on. Let's say
yeah,
that. I mean,
you have more
there are
courage and
thousands of
yes.
great people who are
Oh,
priests and
some of these monks I've met over the years
yeah,
and stuff where I'm just like blown away, but the way you give yourself to this feeling.
right.
But like I don't need something like that to tell me when I can just go to knock on God's door as well, just as quickly as you can. Oh, even more so, where it's like coming from me, where I'm not coming from someone that might be outside asking questions. I think God's going to hear that knock a little bit louder, closer to his heart.
Yeah.
Um,
That's one thing that you know, again, I was in the United Methodist Church, right, coming
yeah,
up, and we didn't have a lot of the same traditions and stuff, but there are those things. It's like, you know, reciting the Apostles' Creed and you know, it's crazy how that stuff's just burned into you, man. Like I went to church, you know, a few times recently for stuff with the
oh, it's
family, and I hadn't been in there. I hadn't been in there in years, and it was like it's just all right there. I
yeah,
remember every word of
yeah.
everything, right? It's just drilled into you. But what I don't remember being drilled into me was having
You can talk to God whenever you want,
any kind of personal relationship with God, right?
right? Yeah,
You know, and so it's interesting. It's like, and I guess that, but again, so something that I said a few weeks ago was that I felt like my father had to get sick and pass away for me to start taking this journey that I've been on.
yeah,
And if I had to find a real reason for me personally why my dad went through what he went through, you know, and knowing my father and him wanting always wanting the best for his children, like that was the most important thing to him. And so it's like he has given me a service that I don't know if I could have gotten any other way.
yeah,
But so to you, with what, you know, with your dad and things you've been through, I think it's kind of the same thing. It's like
yeah,
what's gone on with your dad couldn't, uh, you wouldn't have asked those questions. You wouldn't
yeah.
have
Of course.
had the anger and you wouldn't have gone through the whole thing unless that had happened, you know, and you would not be the person that you are right now if that hadn't happened. And this is what, you know, when people sort of, make light of the fact that, you know, like I know there are especially atheist people can't stand it when someone of faith or anybody says everything happens for a reason, you know, because they don't believe in free will. They believe that everything is just it's predetermined and everything's, you know, it is what it is, and they can't stand that stuff. But for me, it's like I've and look, I'm self-aware enough to ask the question as well, like, well, am I just seeing the outcome? And so that makes it seem like everything
Yeah.
happens for a reason. You know, I can't answer that question. You know, I don't
Like
know the answer
there's
to that,
also like
but
a for me a detachment or like a where if I was doing something wrong, God can't physically come down and punch me in the stomach or slap me or choke me or hey, tell me, hey, what the hell are you doing? Because I think if he did that, it'd be so much easier to be a good person, or it'd be a
All right.
and so, but I think the challenge, and take faith out of it, is the challenge. It's so easy to be an asshole, a dick, a prick to someone, tell them to fuck off. It's so much harder to be the person that gives a homeless guy a pair of boots, or does charity, or is just a genuinely good person. I think
Or
part,
or harder
yeah,
than that, like praise for your enemies and
correct,
wants the best for the people you don't like, which
correct,
is
correct.
really hard.
And it's like I think it's if it was so easy, it would life would be. I don't know. It seemed like I enjoy the challenges of being steady to my faith. Now I still make bad decisions. I still might say
Yeah, we
stuff I
all do.
shouldn't say. But before during my anger period, I use that to the fact that God's not going to come down and say, "I have my own free will. You're not going to dictate, control. If I do something wrong, I have to deal with the consequences. But you're not going to come down and tell me I suck." But
Yeah.
now, as I've gotten back closer to God again, I have felt a. I don't need him to come down. I know. I think more carefully now, especially with my words. Sometimes when I say stuff to people, where I'm kind of like, they don't know me. This might hurt their feelings. I don't want them to feel hurt. And I can kind of look up and just be like very tongue in cheek, be like, you don't have to come down and slap me on the back of the head. Like I know what I did, or I know why I didn't do what I was gonna do, and stuff like that. I don't know, it's such a faith is such a weird, interesting. I love like the
Well,
ups and downs of it. I love the fact that it's very hard thing to maintain some level of
it's the hardest thing I've ever tried to do.
yeah,
Like because of what you said earlier. It's like, well, if you know, if God just came down and appeared, here, and this is the other atheist argument, is like, well, where's God? If he's all powerful, he could just come down and just but again, I go back to this test that we're going through. Like I fully believe that. And there is no test if you have the answers. If you're already given the answers, there's no test at all. Um, you know, you have to learn what the answers are, and the only way to do that uh is to have faith in something that you can't reach, you know,
correct.
this unattainable thing. And so, for me, it's about that. It's about that, you know. And again, man, this is look, I know a lot of Christians will give people heat, would give some a lot of Christians would give someone like me heat if I say, well, this goes for all religions. But I really honestly,
Correct.
we're all praying to the same God. We're all praying for the same things at the end of the day. Um, and uh, so faith is radically difficult, you know. Um, what's interesting about it is you're given these glimpses every once in a while of it. You are given a message, you're given a reality, you're given something that some people would chalk up to circumstance or circumstance up to coincidence, right? That some people would chalk up to just coincidence, and it's like, no, this is more than coincidence, and we all have those things that happen where it's like, you know, uh, and so you're given a glimpse into why. And I think those are gifts that are given. It's like it's a breadcrumb that keeps you
Yeah.
going, and lets you know you're on a path. And so uh it wouldn't be called faith if you had all the answers. It would just be called knowing. And
Yeah.
then you know it's everyone would be a great person if God came down and looked at everyone and said, "Hey, be a good person or else." You know, then it would be false goodness. The thing about faith is trying to be a good person and struggling with that sometimes, man, struggling to be better than the sum of your parts
Yeah.
on a daily basis, uh, to try to achieve some sort of learning and some sort of knowledge and some sort of enlightenment that you didn't have before. Uh, faith is like wildly difficult. And I struggle with it still. I struggle
Yeah.
with it now. I was talking to my friend Tommy Pecker, and Tommy Pecker and I were talking about doing a Bible study, and you know, uh, I text that to him this morning. Is like, and I'm still I still struggle with faith. It's still something I'm trying to figure out, and um, because I feel like I have such a rational, scientific mind sometimes that it makes it doubly difficult, because the rational part of my brain doesn't want to have any part of faith sometimes, and it's like, uh, so but it's a test, man. We're in a school. This is what this is. There's nothing anybody can do to tell me otherwise.
Right.
And again, I don't know what the ultimate purpose of the school is or what the ultimate exam answers are. Um, but
Yeah.
it's not easy, but I think it's necessary. And my hope is that everyone eventually comes around to it and starts to seek it out, because the I don't think I don't think it's so much about having the faith as it is seeking faith,
Yeah.
again, this the journey, not the destination. It's the lessons are going to be learned in the seeking, and in the looking and the wanting and the struggle, you know.
Right.
Um, so John, what we didn't get to talk to about today?
Okay, we have to talk about it next week. I'm just gonna as soon as we hit, 'cause for people to know, as soon as we connect on here, we're live, so we can't really talk about our. And Nando doesn't
Like,
really cut much out. So
I don't see John, like on tour we see each other, but
yeah.
I don't see John very much during the week, and we don't talk very much. We talk once a day, twice a day, but nothing. And then, but like as soon as we hit go, it's like we just start talking about whatever's on our mind. And we were supposed to talk about Bigfoot today because I'm obsessed with it, and
So
actually some of the stuff we talked about today is actually wrapped up in that, which is
yeah,
interesting. But
which I think if we'd still we'd be 2 hours into it more.
oh,
The
dude, if we started this now, we'd go another hour and a
Yeah, at
half.
least. So next episode we'll start with the Bigfoot stuff. I'm about halfway through the second one you sent me.
Yeah,
Um, it's just
I
super
got
fascinating about the whole like the
I got a
paranormal meets like
I got a
energy
ton of stuff to
wavelength.
send you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a ton of stuff to send you. And I guess just to preface it, there are a couple of different camps of Bigfoot people. There are the people who are out in the woods looking for an ape, and they think they're looking for a nothing but a bipedal primate living in the woods. And then there are the people who are looking for and have had spiritual encounters with Sasquatch, which is what I've become interested in because I didn't really know anything about. That's something I had actually thrown off a long time ago. Was just like all the, I never really paid attention. I think John and I started talking about it very briefly one time, and I was just like, I don't know anything about that, and I stumbled onto it somewhere, and I have become obsessed with it because it explains so much of the Bigfoot phenomena and why uh we don't have skeletons and why we don't have
When he
pictures and
started talking
why.
about when these people would see like the trade, like the old stumps and rocks, how they're able to move so
Yeah.
fast, I was like, holy fuck, that would make
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, so we'll get into that next week because I have at least 2 hours worth of stuff that I could talk about with that, and
Yeah.
this will also give me a time to dig a little more, man. Uh, so, uh, but dude, and I actually have a very interesting article that ended up in my email regarding this it's the universe again, man. It's so crazy, and I'll send it to you,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a warning about getting involved in it, like almost like it's like this. Uh not and that it's not this wonderful thing that if you figure out this spiritual side of paranormal side of Bigfoot, that like it's actually like this warning of like be careful what you get involved in kind of thing. It's really interesting. So um and that'll give me a chance to send you some more videos to watch too.
Yeah, no, I
So
love it. Awesome.
peace.